Good morning, everyone. It's Sean here, McEwen Auto Service. I'm joined here by Chris Nolan from Nolan Auto Service.
How you doing, guys?
So Chris has called in this morning for a chat, and just as he calls here, I'm here at the minute servicing Land Rover, would you believe? And it's a good topic of conversation because this particular customer, we have a Bentley Continental behind the window here behind me. There's a Porsche Cayenne after driving out the gate, and we have a Land Rover and 231 Defender, and 3 customers had specified they want a BG service, and that's excellent because that means we have customers. It's delighted to see that when you have customers that actually want the best for their car and are coming and asking for it. Chris has been using BG now for a while. He's down here today. Chris is a very good. You recognise him from Instagram. He's taken my place now as the most famous mechanic in thing.
I don't know about that now. I don't know about that.
But how have you found the BG?
BG, well, we're using it now, touching on 2 years, and I can notice a difference in some of the cars that are coming back into us because we have a lot of repeat custom. But we are getting a lot of customers asking specifically for the BG service. But we use the BG EPR as part of the service. It's included in the service. I won't service a vehicle now unless I use it. And then we're recommending the DOC or the MOA or the 245 or the 44K. Most customers are opting for it, and some customers notice a massive difference. The lady emailed me yesterday after we serviced that car, and she couldn't believe how well it was driving. That was after us doing it. We done a full service, but we used a full triple pack. We call it a BG engine treatment kit. So it's the 3 products: the 245, the EPR, and the DOC. And she could even notice the difference in how the car was driving. It's a Volkswagen. So yeah, I would highly recommend it.
But you were telling me there that you're finding your engines are actually cleaner, the ones you're working on.
Much cleaner. In my own car, I've been using it on my own car religiously, and I would change the oil on my own car and on our company van every 10,000 k.
Yeah. And
you're taking the filters out, and they're spotless, absolutely spotless. And take out your fuel filter, very little debris sitting in the end of the bowl. I think it's fantastic stuff. I really do. I was always really skeptical of stuff coming out of a can. Like same as any mechanic would, it would always be in the idea that it's a mechanical issue and it'll have to be fixed manually. But that EPR and that 245 is unbelievable stuff. It really is.
Yeah, I know. Like we've a lot of people that started even going on to me saying, "Oh, you're advocating this the whole time," as opposed to, it's not about advocating it. What I was down with Chris last week. We called down last Thursday, and I was down with JP then on Friday, and we had a video up down with JP on Saturday. And and I was with Keith Lennon, and I was down with Lara, I was down with a few other guys, and I called around a lot of different garages. And one of the common things to say we did is, it's getting more difficult dealing with customers in general. Not customers. I don't know what you're finding. You have your customers come to you the whole time. They're fine because they trust you 100%. There's no issues. But when a new customer comes in, we're finding they're getting more and more difficult to work with. And we're at a point where we're just going to say, you know what, we're not going to take on any new more customers. We have a way we do things here. Some people prefer a cheaper way of doing it, and then when it comes to paying for the thing, there's a crying match. And it's, I think, the biggest gripe that every garage I spoke to was.
It is. It's like a lot of people will come in for service, and like 9 times out of 10, the people that are coming to us, they're either recommended or they're repeat custom. We do get a lot of new customers coming in and looking for pricing and service, and I can understand that we're probably not suitable to everybody because we would be more expensive than the mainstream garage. And sometimes for some of the stuff, sometimes we're more expensive than the dealer itself. But then
there's a reason.
Yeah, there's a reason for it, because you have to understand what you're actually getting for that money. Whereas you were down with me last week, I had not the typical car I would have in, but I had an Alfa Romeo in, and car was only five-year-old. We were servicing it. We pulled the air filter out. The air filter was absolutely soaked in oil. The guy had bought the car from Alfa Romeo and was getting it serviced from them. The book was stamped. It had 6 services. It had 6 oil changes. Air filter was never done. There's a little breather filter in the block that was never changed. That's why it was throwing the oil back into the air filter. That was never ever changed. The fuel filter still had the manufacturing date on it. So when we pulled the fuel filter out, it was a genuine Alfa Romeo fuel filter, hadn't been changed in 6 years. And he was wondering why there was no power in the car when he dropped it in. So we done a full service in the car. We done time and belt as well. A couple of bits. It was touching on nearly $2,000. But this was because
The
neglect. Going to the dealer, they're saying the service in the car. Now I'm not trying to say that every dealer's the same, but this is a trend. I was a workshop foreman in one of the biggest dealerships in the country, and the dealers would do the bare minimum a lot of the time.
Yeah, get in and out, in and out.
It's all about productivity. Just get them in and get them out. A lot of the time, their service schedules are too long.
Yeah, just an oil change, not just
schedule,
do an oil change, get another one for an oil
and
change.
They're telling you your next service is due on 30k.
Yeah,
it's long gone by then. The service intervals need to be shorter, and it saves you money in the long run. You know, so you have to understand what you're getting for your money. You're getting your car done correctly. We're spending more time on it. We're replacing more parts.
Yeah.
We're putting OE parts into it as well. Plus, we're using these new amazing products which the modern vehicle needs because of all the pollutants that is going into the engines for emission systems and stuff. It's just essential now, in my opinion. And it's getting to the stage now where I won't service somebody's car unless they take my advice and use this, because it's going to lead to problems down the road for both parties.
And do you find, like in the last 2 years that you've been using the products, the BG products, I know myself, and we've said this, and JP's found the same, Larpool finds the same. Like, you go down and ask Larpool about Land Rovers, he says, no problem with Land Rovers. Sorry, bits for them all right, but he's actually not having problems with them. And what we found with our own customers, JP's found and Lar's found, is that the customers that keep coming back, that are willing to spend extra money on the product, it's not much. It's £100 for the 3 kit, do you know what I mean? Plus the VAT. It's good value for what it does. But the cars aren't having trouble. They're in here all the time for servicing, for brakes. What way are you finding that there's a certain batch of customers you have that?
Like religious, our service interval is, I recommend to the customers, every 15,000.
Yeah, same as ourselves.
15,000. And I reiterate that to the customers. Please bring your vehicle back after 15k. If you do that, follow my service plan.
Yeah.
The way I would service a car. I would service a car probably different than Sean, I don't know, maybe the next garage. We all have a different way of servicing a vehicle, but I would be a big advocate of changing your oil at minimum to every 15,000, depending on the conditions you're driving. Maybe 20,000 only if you're using the BG stuff and the correct spec oil, of course, you know. But definitely be advising our customers every 15k, you know. And that way you don't see a lot of trouble anyway. Yeah. You know, general maintenance, brakes, brake fluid changes, stuff like that. Maybe a gearbox service every 100k or something, you know. But generally speaking, the cars are coming into us are repeat custom, and the cars are in great condition. They're not breaking down. They're not coming in the back of tow trucks. The only time I see a car coming in the back of a tow truck is when it hasn't been in my garage regularly.
Yeah, either or a new customer.
Yeah, or a new customer. I very rarely have to call a tow truck to pick up one of my customers' cars unless a battery or something failed or a start motor. There's never any engine failure, you know. Yeah,
we used to have a tow truck here in the Solar. That's the only, because when we've put all our customers onto regular servicing, and again, as you know, they don't. In fairness, they give very little trouble. They don't break down, and if we do have any breakdowns, it's because the vehicles are over 10 years old. Like, they're just worn out.
We've 3 vehicles in at the minute, and I sort of walked into these jobs. 3 vehicles that were born in oil. We looked at the service histories. One of the vehicles is one of our long-term customers, but he wasn't doing what I asked. I asked him to bring it in every 15k. His last service was, I think, 35,000 kilometres ago.
It's nuts, yeah.
So now he's paying the price now. The car needs an engine now. It's born in oil. It's a 14 Audi petrol. I told him every 15,000 kilometres.
Yeah, you would have been all right.
My Mrs. Kira had the very same car for 5 years. I changed the oil every 10,000. Robbie, who works for me, bought the car, and it's still not burning oil. And if you dip it for oil, you can barely see the oil stack clean, because we were using BG on it all the time, and we were servicing it and proper service intervals. It's never given a day's trouble.
Yeah, it's great. I think it is. It's great. And then, but like part of what we're trying to do with these videos is let people know what we're doing, how we do things, and as independent garages, there is a shortage of mechanics in Ireland. That's without a doubt. Everyone knows that. So it's become a point where there's people now that are coming knocking to my door and Chris's door and everyone's door that normally would be going for the cheaper mechanic or the cheaper garage, but they're gone now because they didn't keep up the speed with computers, they didn't keep up speed with diagnostics, they didn't keep up speed with training, even though, because they wouldn't, and this is what I've said, for it, they don't charge enough, and when you don't charge enough, you can't invest in your business or yourself or your staff. So by running your business properly, your garage as a business, you can afford to do the things you need to do, upskill, up-train and up-tool, which is very important, and it's very expensive. It's important to do that, but the problem is here, we're seeing cars now coming to us that typically wouldn't have come here, and every last one of them's like, oh no, this and that's too dear, and it's not too dear. We're still cheaper than the main dealers for the vehicles we're working at. And now, as testament to that, as I say, Bentley, Land Rover, Porsche, there's some Mercedes ML across the way, they're coming in here specifying that they want a BG service done. And to be honest with you, I don't know about you, but that's the customer I want.
Yeah, well,
They want to do it right.
Yeah, well, it's the reads. Look, the last thing any mechanic wants is problems. Yeah. I hate seeing anything coming in the back of a tow truck. My heart does be in my stomach.
It just drops.
Yeah,
What's wrong with this?
It's the last thing I want.
Yeah.
Major problems take major time and cost major money.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, customers don't have the money, and I could understand, because some of the problems cost thousands to fix.
Yeah.
It takes days, weeks. So I've often had a car for a month waiting on bits and pieces to come in for it, then the thing's lying in a million pieces, and then
it could have been avoided.
Has to be all put back together. Both myself, the guys that work for me, nobody wants that type of work. It's a headache, and generally speaking, when something major happens to a vehicle like that, it's never right anyway. It gives lots of teething problems afterwards. So we're looking for customers that want to maintain the vehicle correctly, and it's good for us as a business, keeps us productive, and plus we're looking after the customer. You know, the customer's going to have a peace of mind with the car. You know,
long term it's going to be cheaper. Well, Chris, thanks very much for having the chat with us. And so anyone, if you're in the Dublin area, Balbriggan, give Chris a shout. Nolan Motors there. And if you want the service done right, and there is, and look, and some boys will come on and say, oh, it's this, another, blah, blah, blah. There is a way to do it right, and the way to do it right is longevity for your customer, so your customer's actually car lasts longer. And the same here, if you're in the Dundalk area and you want your car done right, because as part of our restructuring here, what we're looking at doing we're looking at changing a lot of things here, and part of that is to say, right, you know, this is how we're going to fix your car to keep it running longer with less trouble, and if that's what you want. And in fairness, most of our customers, and as Chris says, most of his customers, they're more than happy to spend the extra wee bit.
They're all jumping on board, to be honest with you, you know, because trust is a big thing when you're running a garage business, because we've had a bad reputation for years. Oh, you can't trust the mechanic, and they tell you this is wrong and that's wrong and it's not wrong. That's the furthest thing from my mind. Yeah. It's honesty is best policy regarding fixing vehicles. And I want customers coming back to me every year for service, and I'm not trying to frighten people away, but want to give value for money. You know, if you're getting a car serviced for a lad that's doing it for 150 quid, you have to ask, why is he doing it for 100? What's he doing for 150 quid? You'd be lucky enough to put oil and filter into most cars for 150 quid. It can't be done unless you're using the cheapest possible parts, the shittest oil you can buy, and the car's in and out in 20 minutes. There's nothing being done to them.
Yeah, and then as you say, then there's engine failure down the road.
Yeah. Like, you need to service in the car nowadays, modern vehicles, a proper service, minimum of 2 hours. Minimum.
Yeah, especially when people are holding on to them longer.
Yeah, minimum of 2 hours, like.
Yeah.
So that's just the way it is now. But
yeah, look, as I say again, if you're in the Dundalk area, do give us a shout if you want your service to look. And say we're not advertising cheap servicing. We tried to advertise a cheap service earlier at the start of this year to see what people take up on it, and the bloody barrel of oil is still full because no one wants it. Because thankfully the customer that comes here, they want to spend the money, they want to know the vehicle's done right. So if that's the type of customer you are, that cares for your vehicle and wants things done right, by all means,
man.
give myself,
How are you?
Chris,
You all right?
Cork, give JP a shout.
Keeping you busy?
There's a lot of good guys around Dublin.